Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Elite Physique Coach's Corner. Today is less of well, there's a little bit of my 2 cents and opinions, and I think they're fairly educated opinions. But it's also some pontificating, and today I'm just kind of exploring. And if we do have other people who jump on in time, I'd love to hear people's opinions. Even if you do watch this after the fact, like if it's not the Facebook Live, or if it's on YouTube, then this isn't live. I'd love to hear people's comments in the box, kind of answering the question that I'm asking, and either agreeing or giving some examples or disagreeing with my points. But I'm kind of pontificating on whether the industry and all the workout techniques and the nutrition and the supplementation has evolved since the 1990s. And we're now going to be getting into 2020 soon. Sounds all futuristic and stuff, and it feels like we should be driving things forward, but it really feels like we're at a time in society of very slow progress. We see a lot of stuff with smartphones evolving. But really, in society, I don't see a lot progressing, and that would include the fitness industry as well. And I guess my advice at the end of this, after kind of observing and bringing up some points, my advice is go stick to the basics. Don't look at all the new BS out there, because most of the time it doesn't work. And most of the stuff that was proven to work, and some of the best natural bodies that have ever been seen, were back in the 90s, right? So, one example, and I'd love to hear, I'm friends on Facebook with Bill Phillips. So I think I'm going to tag him in this, and I'd love to hear his opinion. But we're going to touch on supplements first. I don't know how many of you remember Bill Phillips. He owned a company called EAS. And this was back in, again, the 90s and then very early 2000s before he sold out of it. He's the creator of the Body for Life Challenge, which is essentially what UFE has modeled the 90-day challenge out of. But in that heyday of supplements, it was EAS, Experimental and Applied Sciences. It was Muscle Tech, and I'd say maybe in third place you'd have like a Pro Lab. And it used to be that those companies got ahead. So there were other companies, right? The 80s, there was Cybergenics, and Cybergenics was an amazing marketing company. They marketed supplements that essentially got found down the line that basically didn't work. Like, they had protein and people would just shit it out. And, a lot of the stuff they had, people would say, yeah, remember that Cybergenics stuff? It was garbage, but, it got them into the industry. So you had the 80s, and then you had some, companies come up with that, like you had your Twin Lab and other companies. And then you had in the 90s, especially towards the late 90s, to stand out and kind of get away from the bullshit side of supplements. You had companies like Muscle Tech, EAS, and Pro Lab leading with science. So what they would do is say, okay, we know that companies from the 80s and early 90s, people would have their stomach problems. They weren't working. They weren't getting results. And people would spend like, I don't know, I forget what the Cybergenics program would cost, but it'd be like hundreds of dollars in supplements that, the vast majority of opinion was that they didn't work. So what these other companies did was say, okay, we know you might not have a lot of trust in supplements, but let us prove it. Let us prove the efficacy of our supplements through research. And if anybody goes back in the day to Muscle Tech, I remember that they commissioned studies at McMaster University, going, okay, like here's an ingredient in our supplement. Let's see how well this works for muscle building or fat loss. But McMaster University wasn't the only one. I bring it up because I went there, but they would commission studies all around Canada and the US, whether it was specifically on their supplement or whether it was ingredients within their supplement. And EAS would do the same. And they came out with a few basic supplements that did an extremely good job, right? People may remember, it's been a long time, the original Muscle Tech Hydroxy Cut. That stuff legitimately got you results. Now, it ended up being taken off the market because humans, of course, our nature is, wow, if, one capsule works this well, then what if I take 100 capsules? And, 100 capsules would kill them. And sure enough, a few people died using it because they were getting silly. And, Muscle Tech had to adapt their formula. But the original formula back in the day, people were shredding all kinds of fat, okay? So, Muscle Tech and the Hydroxy Cut, EAS, and they had a product called Phosphagen. And they had all kinds of scientific studies on creatine, but not just on creatine, how you can amplify the effects of creatine. And they would use a sugar called dextrose, which would jack up your insulin levels, and then the creatine would shuttle in there. These companies came up with glutamine, and then protein isolate, and ZMA were another one. So there were essentially like maybe a half dozen good supplements. Fast forward now, we're in the year 2020 almost, okay? I'm talking about an era of 1998, 21 years ago. Okay, the supplement industry essentially started in the 80s. Like there was, BS Ben Weider products back in the day, but really it started in about the 80s. And within about 10 years, the industry had come so far, and we're now 21 years later, and we really haven't created anything. So it'd be interesting, and I encourage people to do this on their own. Look up any company that you're dealing with. You go into the supplement store and I want to buy X brand. I'm not going to mention any brands in case somebody from that brand freaks out. But I want to buy X brand. Do yourself a favor and look at their website and see if they've commissioned any recent studies. And in 99.9% of cases, you're going to find that they haven't. These companies have gone back. They've literally fallen back in time to the 1980s, where it was all just marketing hype, nothing to them. So someone might say, oh, I take this pre-workout and I feel like crazy. I can lift a house. And that's simply from jacking up these pre-workouts with a bunch of niacin, which doesn't really have any great effects for bodybuilding or fitness. It's just a vitamin. It's fine. And then a boatload of vitamin C, a boatload of caffeine. And basically, they found that in performance studies, performance can go up, but then it starts to decrease after 600 grams. So you'll notice 600 milligrams a day. So you notice people will take a pre-workout and then they've got coffee, and they're dependent on caffeine to even stay awake. Okay, so these pre-workouts are relying on no new information. They're just jacking up their supplements with a bunch of, you know, BS ingredients and caffeine to make it feel like you're getting something out of it, but they've really done nothing new. Okay, so what's your answer to that? One is when I go to the supplement store, whatever supplement store it is, EAS unfortunately doesn't really exist anymore. I think they've got maybe a couple of products. They got bought out by Abbott. Bill Phillips has nothing to do with it. But I know Muscle Tech from the old era. Labrada is kind of from the early 2000s. And I think Lee Labrada is still heavily involved with it. A couple of companies out there that have stuck to the basics. They have put the research into their products, even though they're probably not doing much new research. They do have quality because that's how they got their money in the first place. They've got the money to put into the quality, and they do have a reputation to uphold. And then, like I said, they're the ones who did the research in the first place back in the day. The other thing is most of the new supplements on the industry, since creatine, glutamine, ZMA, and your basic proteins, stuff like that, most of them are useless. Okay, I hear people talking about beta-alanine and it increases blood flow to the muscle. Who cares? It really isn't doing anything. Okay. So the same impactful supplements from 21 years ago are the best supplements to be taking now. Okay. The same brands that were good 21 years ago, if they exist, are probably the same brands to invest in now. And I would say with 99% confidence that almost everything out there is just marketing bullshit. So in fact, we've regressed in the area of supplements. And keeping this, I guess, kind of on track, but I want to try and wrap up within the next couple of minutes. But going back to basics too on exercise and nutrition is something else I'd encourage. So, what you see on Instagram, and we're seeing people walking around the gym and they've got this tight band around their knees and they're doing side steps and they're doing squats and all this kind of stuff. I dare you to compare some of the bodies you would see in the 1990s in a fitness competition, some of the top people that didn't have these bands wrapped around their legs, and what you see now. And I'm not saying that people look worse. I'm saying that they don't look any better, and there's a bunch of nonsense out there. So the same stuff that worked back in the 90s is going to work today. And I'd say the majority of the new crap you see in there in the gym, and I just use the band as an example, it's not going to do anything. Okay? It's not giving you further results. We haven't advanced the industry. I'd actually love to have a Lane Norton comment on my post one time and just see if he agrees as well. But yeah, it is a sad state when really our knowledge of working out hasn't progressed since 1998. Okay, I'm going to show you another book. Okay. The Zone, Dr. Barry Sears. This book, I believe, was published again 1995. Okay. I encourage people to read this book, look at it online. It's probably still one of the best books out there for nutrition. We had Atkins invented in, again, the mid-late 90s. So what is the Zone? The Zone is basically talking about a reduction in carbs and an increase in healthy fats and healthy protein, keeping your insulin more balanced through the day. Okay, and he basically talks in here about all your healthy sources. And if you've seen the food guide since the 1980s, you'll notice the food guide is slowly catching up after 500 years to books like this that always said you should start to lower your carbs, decreases inflammation, keeps your carb levels, or keeps your insulin levels more balanced. Atkins, like I was saying, same kind of thing, increasing fats and proteins, decreasing carbohydrates. We've seen some spin-offs since then. Paleo, what is it? Just a different bullshit marketing technique on the Atkins diet. Okay, we're seeing all the eat right for your blood type. Even that one is retro. Like that one at least had some sort of creativity. But again, kind of bullshit. And we're seeing if it fits your macros, all this kind of stuff. None of this has actually moved the industry forward. Okay, so I guess in all of this, Bill says the tried and true will always work. That's right. All of this, what does it mean? It means we go back to an old adage that we said, as kids, or you'd hear adults saying when you were a kid, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Okay. All of the complex stuff you're seeing on Instagram and, hey, this is my crazy, Joe Blow diet X, whatever it is. Okay. All bullshit, all just probably a crappy spin on what was already done. Okay. So there's already been something done, and it's probably a lot simpler, and it probably had a lot more science behind it. So this is a good book. If you want to go buy it or if you want to study it online. Supplements. Keep it simple, stupid. Okay? Going back to that saying. Okay? The stuff that worked back in the 90s is the stuff that's going to work now. You've got your creatine to increase muscle, your glutamine to speed recovery, your protein to put you in a positive nitrogen balance, your ZMA to help you with your growth hormone during your sleep. You've got your caffeine and ephedrine stack for burning fat, okay? And then when it comes to exercise, when you see all these people on Instagram doing this and that, and hey, I got a new training method, buy my online. There's been nothing put forward in the industry that I've seen that's fantastic, that's actually moving things forward and getting people more fit than they were. Okay. The only difference where we're seeing, I'd argue there's more people that are fit than back in the late 90s. Okay. And that's simply just because we're pushing, we're pushing the idea of fitness. Okay. With that said, I think there's still just a much more monstrous portion of people that are out of shape, but we are seeing more people at a higher level because more people are just applying the knowledge from 20 years ago. The other is you are going to see more people, so that the best people you would see 21 years ago, well, there's significantly more of them. I'd say one is again, more people applying the knowledge. Two, the unfortunate part of it is we're seeing a proliferation of steroids. So I think you're going to actually see a proliferation of all these stories that we've seen over the years, from some of the top WWE stars dying to top bodybuilders dying to having legs amputated because their circulatory system is shutting down. You're going to see a lot more of these stories because of the wider acceptance of steroids in the industry. Mark my words, it's coming to all of those people who think at 20-something years old or 30-something years old that they know better and that, I can use whatever I want. It's catching up. Mark my words, okay? But going back, nutrition, supplementation, exercise, keep it simple. What worked before works now. Got some comments on it. So far, everybody's in agreement. We see Jen on here saying she agrees. But yeah, you know what I'm going to do after is, right now this is a live, I'm going to end up tagging. I'm going to tag Bill Phillips in this, and I'm going to see if we can get him to respond and what his response is, and see if somebody like a Lane Norton, who prides himself on kind of being ahead of the curve, and he's a PhD that, knows all the latest stuff. I'd be curious to see if he knows where the industry has progressed since the 90s. Okay, so what does that mean for some of these trainers out there as well too? Because my business is as a coach, and a lot of my knowledge that I'm studying books that go back to this era. Okay, so I'm not looking at all the latest and greatest Instagram bullshit. I'm going back to that era to study what works. Okay. Al says food is the best supplement. Al, that's an interesting, I'd say, I know what you're meaning by that. A supplement is exactly that. It's meant to be something different than food. Food is food. A supplement is a supplement. I kind of know where you're going with it, though. Like, food should be your baseline. The majority of your results are going to come from food. With that said, I do think supplements can take you to a different level. Okay. So to clients that are looking at trainers, to trainers that are looking at studying and what to know, my nutrition knowledge comes from textbooks like this. This textbook here, published in, probably 2000, okay? 2002, 1995, okay? My supplement knowledge comes from an old book that EAS used to put out. I don't have it on my rack now, and I forget the title, and I haven't looked at it because I've looked at it about 50 times, and I remember basically most of the words in there verbatim. But yeah, those are your sources to be looking at. And if your trainer is trying to say, hey, I've got the newest, greatest, if it fits your macros and all these funky things, ask them what the science is behind it. Okay? And like I said, if you're a trainer, these are the best sources. This is the time in our industry when everything needed to be backed by science. And I think everything goes in cycles, right? They talk about in economics, the business cycle every 10 years, okay? And you'll see it. We go through recessions and growth periods about every 10 years in the business cycle. And it looks like we're seeing the same kind of cycles, but maybe we're operating in 20-year cycles. Supplements were garbage in the 70s and 80s. And then all of a sudden, we had that peak of, wow, there needs to be science behind these supplements. It's not just about marketing. But unfortunately, since the early 2000s, we've gone back to that time where everything you look at is just marketing. Hey, I'm going to take this pre-workout, but look at the ingredients. It's got 400 milligrams of caffeine jacked up with beta-alanine, so it makes your veins look like they're pumped, and niacin, so you feel a tingle. They're all basically bullshit, okay? So stick to the basics, okay? Stick to your basic brands. If you want some recommendations, and then maybe I didn't get all my recommendations out, let me know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Very cool to see lots of you commenting on this one, and looking forward to seeing the engagement after the fact. Just my take on things, and looking forward to hearing what you guys say. So I'll be back on next week, same bat time, same bat channel. That's Wednesday at 7:30. Who knows what I'll talk about? I'll figure it out in my head. If you guys have something cool you'd like to hear me talk about, I'm happy to as well. All right. See ya.